Now these experiments imply the notion of other realities existing alongside with the one and only reality that we seem to presuppose, suggesting that everything from his wristwatch to the galaxies is merely computed and is not there. The idea of living in a computer simulation is interesting as a tool for understanding hallucinations, especially when we look at existing simulated worlds such as Second Life. It's easy to imagine that the other could hear voices that you do not hear just because that their avatar is running software that you do not have. It means that you might not judge their experience as non-existent or diminished. This brings a whole new light to Julian Jaynes' concept of the bicameral mind, in which he believes that before the second millennium BC, everyone was schizophrenic. Everyone heard voices that were giving commands. We were all avatars. And within this context, it might be interesting to actually look at the descriptions by voice hearers of what it's like. One of them says, if you start hearing voices, you realize that they have always been there. It's a matter of the right wavelength. Another person says, I hear voices only if I attend to them, but hear them I do. Now it's Oxford professor Nick Bostrom's 2002 paper suggests, or asks, are you living in a computer simulation? And it is based on the idea that civilizations of the future have enough computing power and programming skills to create what he calls ancestor simulations. Such a simulation would be a very realistic virtual reality world in which the brains inhabiting it are themselves part of the simulation. Again, we'll all be avatars in this. The interesting thing about Bostrom's paper is that in the end he actually concludes that there is a high probability that we are already living in such a computer simulation. And it's the philosopher David Chalmers, he even goes as far as to estimate that the chances are 20%. That's quite high. So if we are living in a computer simulation, perhaps it is a quantum computer. So hallucinations in the universe is a quantum computer. MIT's inventor of the quantum computer, Seth Lloyd, has recently introduced the concept of our reality being a quantum computer. In his book, Programming the Universe, 2006, he suggests that the universe is a huge ongoing quantum computation, which computes itself and its own behavior. Now, ideas that support this theory are also developed by the neuroscientist and head of the Blue Brain Supercomputer Brain Simulation Project, Henri Marcram, and in his recent 2010 TED Talk, Marcram speculates on the basis of his research results that the universe might have evolved the brain in order to see itself. It's very interesting. The brain is evolved by the universe in order so that the universe could see itself. And we might wonder then what the role of the brain is then in this quantum computer. And could its role be to create things such as time constructions, to create our realities? In his 2009 TEDx talk in Amsterdam, the astronaut and engineer and physicist Hugo Ockels explains, and I quote, time is created by human beings as a way our brains can make sense of gravity. The speed of light is constant because it is made by us. It's the clock by which we have calibrated our existence, and based on this premise, Ockels proposes a new way to explore life in our galaxy. And this proposal by Hugo is to let go of our chronocentric thinking. The speed of light is our own construct, and in a sense, time seems to be the very material that allows us to have experiences in a physical world. Now, this is my big idea here in this conference, or question at least. Probably other people have asked themselves as well. What if madness, which then resides in us all, is the ability to step outside of our constructed realities, just as we do in our dreams? That is, how about considering madness as our time-traveling or time-shifting abilities to manipulate the substance of the quantum computer, our universe, in a more extreme sense, and to rebuild realities, maybe with the goal of life to play? What if this is an ability that we have always had, yet have somehow forgotten about, as radical constructivism suggests is possible? Now, this would probably include a whole new take on Einstein's statement that reality is an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. Madness would be the mind space we enter to question this very persistency of reality. The laws of nature would be the rules of the game we created. But how to break free from them? What wonderful things could we do if we could break through our construct of the speed of light? just as Ockel suggests. We might wonder if that is why madness is so often linked to creativity and genius. In psychosis, the thought is everything. Whatever thoughts you have, it has the danger of being experienced as a real reality. But how to shift an individual's constructed reality to a shared constructed reality? As Heinz von Förster states in 1973, reality is community. Now, thinking about our experienced reality as a quantum computer simulation, in which we are making alterations in slowly, means we would need to take constructed realities of others seriously, and not ignore them or try to suppress them just because we do not see them, as we simply cannot be sure that there are no external objects that are causing them. We would be trying to suppress the very nature of our human ability to construct realities. In a quantum computer, everything would be true and not true at the same time, depending on the perception of the observer. As Louis Suss describes, quote, rather than mistaking the imaginary for the real, they, the psychotics, often seem to live in two parallel but separate worlds: consensual reality and the realm of their hallucinations and delusions. So let's take a look at how the space of madness is described from within. Suddenly, the grandeur of the power often described as felt during psychosis could be considered in a rather different way. I felt I had, and I'm quoting, I felt I had the power to determine the weather which responded to my inner moods and even to control the movement of the sun in relation to other astronomical bodies. It's one of the reasons why many people in psychosis have to conclude that it might be Jesus. Should we keep ignoring such claims as an over-vivid imagination? Patient Mr. Neal, who has experience with psychosis, says that the psychotic enters realities that no one else can enter. Realities in which past, present, and future cannot be distinguished from each other. He describes that the suffering that goes with madness comes mostly from the inability to not being able to communicate one's inner experience. Your thoughts are going too fast or too slow. So my conclusion? In the end, it doesn't matter if what I'm suggesting is true or not, or if it can be proved or not, or if you believe it or not. What does matter is that it provides a new way of thinking about madness as a space that we can all fall into. It is important to think about tools that can allow us to explore this space and to navigate through it in a way that makes us feel that we fit, so that we do not succumb to fear and suffering. We fear and suffer from what we do not understand. In essence, what I am arguing for is an awareness that our concept of madness is intricately related to our concepts of reality, and that in order to break through the stigma of madness, we need to break through our conventional conceptions of reality. As Jim Al-Kahali, professor of nuclear physics at Surrey University, explains in a BBC4 documentary on the nature of reality, and I quote, "The world we think we know, the solid, reassuring world of our senses, turns out to be just a tiny sliver of an infinitely weirder, more wonderful universe than we could have ever conceived in our wildest fantasies. Our reality is just an illusion." In such a world, is the concept of an hallucination as a symptom of mental illness not a self-fulfilling prophecy of suffering, as it being an error of not being allowed to exist? And if so, does the concept of the hallucination have the right to exist? Thank you.
We still have 10 minutes actually to share. If anyone among you who has some hallucinations to share with us.
Jennifer, in my talks I like to say that machines hallucinate also. Every machine I've built sees things that are not there. You want to comment on human versus machine hallucinations?
Well, I think my computer is an entity, or the internet is an entity that indeed I think sometimes just breaks down or has, when people are working in these fields, I always ask them, but what is the madness in your system? You know, where's the glitch? Where's the, so yes, my comment would only be yeah, I do believe that.